and welcome to the panel, Feminist Research Methodology in Film. This panel, and especially the screenings that led up to this panel, is in collaboration with the Gender Amity Committee. So we'd like to thank the GAC for their support. The idea of this panel sort of came from thinking about representation on the one hand and of care on the other hand, about who do I care about or what do I care about to want to represent it. We often think of representation and of care as different models of knowledge, but लेकिन ये दो चीज़ें बिल्कुल अलग है क्या, मतलब या फिर एक दूसरे से जुड़े हैं. So can we imagine these two models speaking with each other? और जब हम representation के बारे में सोचते हैं, there is the question of who represents who, and as feminists we engage with politics of location and of gaze. So कौन किसको represent करता है या कर सकते हैं? Similarly, when we think of ethics of care, it's again there's this issue of who cares about who or for who in order to speak about who or for who. So in this discussion today, we hope to bring different imaginations of representation, where there can be possibilities of speaking with instead of speaking for and speaking about. So किसी के बारे या किसी के लिए ना बोले, बल्कि कोशिश करें कि किसी के साथ बात करें. So to introduce the panel, we have Leena Manimekalai, a leading Tamil poet and filmmaker. Her films and writings are deeply driven by her social commitment. All her films across genres and lengths, which count a dozen now, deal with the dynamics of caste, gender, globalization in the contemporary society, art therapy, student politics, post-disaster trauma, and environmental issues, among others. Leena's films such as My Mirror's The Door, Goddesses, Sengadal, The Dead Sea, and White Man Stories that have created a strong discourse on ecofeminism, Dalit women's lives, plight of refugees and fishermen in the Park Strait, and enforced disappearances in the background of Tamil ethnic cleansing in Sri Lanka, have been critically acclaimed and awarded several times at various national and international film festivals. Goddesses won the Golden Conch for the Best International Documentary at MIFF. Sengadal won the NAWFF Award for the Best Asian Woman Cinema and the prestigious Indian Panorama Selections at Ibteda, Guha. White Man Stories is to this date the only documentary feature that was shot exclusively in Lanka and has won accolades at Channel 4 and Al Jazeera broadcast platforms. A recipient of the Charles Wallace Art Award for Visual Ethnography, the European Union Fellowship for Media and Conflict Resolution and the Commonwealth Fellowship for Women in Film, Leena has published 5 poetry collections, and her latest film, The Rape Nation, traces rape survivors and their fight for justice across the subcontinent. She is currently promoting her film, Is It Too Much to Ask?, that follows the journey of 2 trans women friends hunting for a rented house in the city of Chennai, and I must add that we watched this film here last evening. Ma'am, if you could please join us with that. Our next speaker, Priya Sen, please you can join us. Priya works as a filmmaker and artist across video installation and sound. Her work is screened at festivals including the BFI London Film Festival, Forum Expanded Berlinale, Serpentine Gallery, Experimenta, and Ibteda, among others. She has been at artist residencies at Gasworks in Nottingham Contemporary in the UK and at Coach Studios in Delhi. She worked with experimental media at Sarai, CSDS, and taught experimental and non-fiction film at Srishti School of Art and Design and Sri Aurobindo Centre for Arts and Communication. Priya was an India Foundation for the Arts Fellow at the AIIS Archive and Research Centre for Ethnomusicology between 2016 and 17. She is currently working on a feature documentary and is based out of New Delhi. Our next speaker, Pujita Guha. Pujita, Pujita is a PhD scholar in cinema studies at the School of Arts and Aesthetics, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Her research interests are primarily in ecology, Asian cinema, and film philosophy. Her political interests are at the intersection of gender, environment, and aesthetics. Finally, our next speaker, Somnath Waghmare. Somnath is a postgraduate in media studies from Savitribai Phule, Pune University. He worked for 2 years at the Film and Television Institute of India, Pune. He has made 2 documentary films, I Am Not a Witch and The Battle of Bhima Koregaon, which has been screened here at this. Both documentaries have been screened in different cities of India and have gained appreciation. His area of interest lies in caste and gender issues. Currently, he is working on a docu-biopic on Dr. Gail Longwood. He is also pursuing MPhil right here at this. Moderating the session is our very own Dr. Bindu, Associate Professor at the So, handing over to you now.
Thank you, Shraddha, for that wonderful introduction. And I don't have anything more to really say after Shraddha's introductory speech. And also, we don't need to spend a lot of time in introduction. We have this panelists here, and we are here to listen to them today. Just to reiterate what we are here today to also look at representation in this context of looking at the politics of ethics of care, and can we see, are they distinct? That is what we are going to look at in this perhaps next 2 hours we will have to look at. So we are not going in any particular order, so perhaps we'll go the way you read out the introduction. So Leena can begin the session, and then the panelists will follow. After your presentation, we will open the floor for discussion, and also across communication and cross community, we will do that here. That is the format we would follow. So Leena, yeah. So what we can do there, you have to also show some clips, so we can move up the interview so that. All of us can come back again to the panel. Over to you. Oh, can you speak? You are going to speak.
Hi, thanks for inviting me here.
Hi everyone, thanks for inviting me here. Feminist research methodology. Wow, I mean, these are like big jargons for me. Yeah, I'm a total non-academic. I just practice cinema, and I'm this really crazy intuitive filmmaker, and I don't know about methodologies. All my methodology is intuition. So yeah, I mean, I could present you whatever I practice as films, because films is, my film is a medium in which I'm continuing to have a dialogue with my own society, asking questions myself, and dealing with my dilemmas, dealing with my fear, my doubts, my, whatever. So film is kind of a tool. I mean, it gives me an agency to have a conversation with the world around. So that's why I'm continuing to make films. Methodologies is like, I just go to a village with a few phone numbers and start talking to people, make connections, live with them, learn with them, because these are the communities whom I have never learned in my university, in my schools. So I travel, I stay with them, and each film is like a new course curriculum for me. I learn about that, and I share what I learn about them. And I'm sure they're not perfect. It will have all my craziness into it. So that's why I take my film to the audience, and let them question me. And again, in every space I'm asked to speak, I keep telling people that my film gets completed each screenings, and each completion is new, not 2 screenings are same. So yeah, and this is like a process which I enjoy a lot, which is like really hectic, but I really, I'm immersed in this process, like where I go, learn, participate in the lives of people whom I have never known before, and kind of, create a dialogue with them, make something, which is shareable to the rest of the world, and then carry that, and travel everywhere and meet people and talk about it. And it's a continuing dialogue. So I look at my films as my dialogue, which is ongoing. So I do not know about feminist research methodologies, but if you find something within my films, you can always ask me. Like, I can tell you like what, it is kind of a very, recent film which I'm working, apart from all the films Shraddha has been listing. Even now I've been talking to my fellow panelists. This is about unstable community in Tamil Nadu. I just came to know very recently about them. I'm so ashamed in my 37 years of life. I've never known such a community live in Tamil Nadu. I go to an Ambedkar centenary meeting, and I got to meet a person who's the first generation graduate from that community. And I start, learning about who this community is. Because they are unseeables within untouchables. This Podaravannans, whom Ambedkar had spoken in his 5th chapter, like some 7 decades ago, they are like, they wash clothes of Dalits, and they are unseeables. And these communities are very known for their eternal displacement only because of the sexual harassment they meet out in every village. Because they are the slaves who are like, destined to do this kind of cultural slavery to Dalits. And yeah, I just finished shooting a film about them. But I wouldn't be able to enlist methodologies I actually employed to know about them, because it is just emotionally charged, intuitive, learning about them and filming them. So I employed fiction to make this film. It's about a 15-year-old unseeable girl from that community. And it ended up as the history of 3-generation women who've been harassed in the name of caste as unseeables. So this is called Bushlak, which I just finished shooting. And the other one, which is called Rape Nation, I don't know when I will complete, because I started it in 2013 and it's ongoing, because it's like really a larger than material for me to handle. I've been following Soni Sori. You all know her. Vangali Devi, again you know her. And Bilkis Banu, yes, of course, you know her. And Manorama from Manipur. And Rehanas from Kerala. So all these 5 warriors. So I'm interested in their fights than their victimization. So this film will be about their fights and how they won over the tragedies and how they are leaders, and how rape is again like something which you can, yes, of course there's no closure, but something which we can fight. So this is about their fight. So this film is like I've been doing this like for past 4-5 years, and I hopefully finish it this year. So these 2 are the films I'm currently working, and you can see the clips from my other films. The other film which you saw yesterday, I'm open to questions, and if it is really helpful for the panel about methodologies, because I don't know, I mean, I don't go to people thinking myself as a feminist or whatever. I just go as a person who's curious, who cares about them, and who want to have a dialogue with them. These three are the only objectives when I go and meet people. So, yeah, let's talk more. Thank you.
இன்னைக்கு நாளைக்கு பொண்ணுக்கு வந்து முக்கியமா அவருடைய மானம் பெருசா, உயிரை விட மானம் பெருசா நினைக்கிறாங்க. அந்த மானமே இந்த ஊர்ல வந்து தலை தூக்கினாங்க. நிமிர்ந்து நடக்க முடியாத ஒரு சூழ்நிலை. என் வீட்டுக்காரருக்கு வந்து 40 வயசு, நான் 7 வயசுக்கு 40 வயசுக்கு பாரு கட்டி வச்சாங்க. அதை வச்சுட்டு இன்னைக்கு நான் குடும்பத்தை வாழ்றேன். இன்னைக்கு வீட்டாலும் இருக்குது எல்லாம். நான் பொண்ணுக்குள்ள 4 தூரமா இருப்பேன். அப்புறம் 3 பிள்ளைங்க, 2 பசங்க, இந்த பொண்ணுக்குள்ள வருவேன். இதெல்லாம் நான் தான் 4 ஆளுங்க கட்டிட்டு வரேன்.
இப்போ இந்த 2 பொண்ணுங்களுக்கு கல்யாணம் ஆயிடுச்சு?
ஆயிடுச்சு. இது வந்து தாய்மாமன் கட்டிக்கிச்சு, இது தாய்மாமன் கட்டிக்கிச்சு.
எவ்வளோ வயசுல?
இப்போ இது 1 வருஷம் ஆகுது, அதுக்கு 1 வருஷம் ஆகுது. அதுக்கு என்ன ஒரு 30 வயசு இருக்குது யாருக்கும் மாப்பிளைக்கு. இதுக்கு 16 வயசு ஆகுது. அப்ப அது ஒத்துக்காதா?
இவ்வளோ வயசு வித்தியாசத்துல கல்யாணம் பண்றீங்க. இந்த பிள்ளைங்களுக்கு கல்யாணமே என்னன்னே தெரியாது.
தெரியாது. இருக்கிறதுக்கு தெரியுமா? இருக்கிறதுக்கு தெரியுமா தெரியாது?
அதுக்கு இந்த பிள்ளைங்க வளர்ந்ததுக்கு அப்புறம் கல்யாணம் பண்ணி
வளர்ந்ததுக்கு பிற்பாடு அப்படின்னா அது அதுக்குள்ளே கூட இடத்துல போயிடும். ஒரு ஆம்பளுக்கு முடியல, அந்த ஆம்பளுக்கு முடியும்னா நம்ம போய் உழைச்சாத்தானே சாப்பிட முடியும். கடலுக்குன்னு போகும்போது பெண்ணாவே நாங்கள் போக மாட்டோம். நம்ம ஒரு ஆம்பளை பையன் மாதிரி தான் நாங்கள் கடலுக்கே போறது. ஆம்பளை மாதிரி போனோம்னா நம்ம ஏதோ ஒரு மீனை பிடிக்கலாம், நண்டை பிடிக்கலாம், ராணை பிடிக்கலாம், அதுல வந்து சாப்பிடலாம் அப்படின்னு போற நேரத்துல கையவும் கடிச்சுக்கணும், காலையும் கடிச்சுக்கணும், திருக்கையும் குத்திக்கணும். திருக்கை விட்டுச்சுன்னா 3 நாளைக்கு கிடைக்கும். ஆஸ்பத்திரி போனா 3 நாளைக்கு கிடைக்கும். அதுக்கு 1 வருஷம் வைத்தியம் பார்க்கணும். அப்படியே உள்ள சார்பாடுலாம் இருக்கு. அதையெல்லாம் மறந்து உயிரையெல்லாம் எடுத்து வேண்டான்னு சொல்லி தூக்கி போட்டுட்டு தான் கடலுக்கு போறோம். கடலுக்கு போயிட்டு கரையை வந்ததுக்கு போயிட்டு எங்க உயிரை எங்கிட்ட வரும். கடல்ல ஊந்துட்டா நல்லா இருக்கும் கொஞ்சம் போனோம். அதே ஆற்றுல ஊந்துட்டா புழு குட்டா போகும். அது 2 நாள் தண்ணியில ஊட்டா புழு வச்சு அப்படியே கிடைக்கும். அதே மாதிரி நாய் கழிச்சா சாமி கொடுக்கவே மாட்டாங்க. எங்க போனாலும் எந்த மம்மி யாரும் சிபாசி எங்க போனாலும் தரமாட்டாங்க. நம்ம தான் போய் எடுத்து வரணும். ஈஷன் பவுடர் கொட்டி பாலை சுற்றி தான் எடுத்து வந்து கழிக்கணும். எல்லா வேலையும் நம்ம தான் செய்யணும். அதுக்கும் ஊசி போட மாட்டாங்க. அந்த பொண்ணு அந்த
can be something really dangerous. When you know your white man, you are dead. You won't die, you won't live, you will just disappear. Someone will just come, snatch away the family, the happiness is gone. We do this about our father. We should draw graffiti for everyone to disappear, not only for our father. The absence of war does not confirm the presence of peace. Yes, there is no war, there is no killing, but there is no peace as well. Even now, there is a cold war going on against journalists and against people who have different ideas. And if we keep silent, it will happen again. History will repeat like Shakespeare says.
Thank you, Leena, for that, and also bringing these stories to all of us here. We will have the discussion together. We will call up on stage Priya. Yes.
It's very difficult to say anything after that. So I will try and focus on what I do, which is going to be a bit tough. So just to tell you a little bit about my work. I mean, I actually work with the medium of film and video and sound, and they don't become films a lot of the time. It's more of a practice, and And the reason why I didn't actually say in my bio, which is very outdated, where all these things are situated, is because they keep changing. And I think the one constant has been working in Delhi. Delhi is very interesting to me because of the kind of transformations it goes through and what that means for people who live there. And actually that's something that started when I worked with Sarai. I'm not sure if you're Sarai CSDS, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it used to be a research and practice research organization. And it was sort of one of these incredible spaces that couldn't last maybe because for 10 years we brought in various practitioners together to sort of think about the city and to think about what research means and what practice is and how we can understand this moment in which we live, which is constantly changing. So I think a lot of ways in which, and of course the other thing that this came into contact with was my kind of a formal engagement with film, which usually means that my films don't fit and are hence sort of relegated to certain spaces but not all spaces. And which is actually great because it's fine. But so what I try and do is I actually, so this panel is very interesting to me because for me it's kind of interesting to try and, I've never really, again, like Leena was saying, I don't start out saying I'm a feminist filmmaker. I mean, I'm not really sure what that means, and I think it's a good question to ask, like what is a feminist framework? There is one, definitely. There are several. But I think sometimes sort of like treating it as a given and then going on from there. So I was talking to this friend of mine who's a poet, Waghmare, and he said, well, it's feminist because you're doing it. So I was like, okay, but so I think it's an interesting question, and also this panel, the idea of what does that look like, I think is something that is quite interesting to think about. I have a whole set of things on my phone, actually, I just look at it. But so what I'm going to present here really are two works. So thinking through two films of mine. One is being made, and one is something that I made in 2014, and it took 4 days to make that film, and this one is taking 2 years. And so, this is basically what I mean by it being kind of an engagement for the moment, and sometimes it takes 4 days, and sometimes it takes, whatever, years. And so the film that I will start with is called Noonday Dispensary, and it is situated in a resettlement colony in Delhi, which is actually both my films are somehow come out of these spaces, which I don't know if resettlement means something very different in Bombay and in Delhi, and but sort of I've been engaged with sort of the politics of resettlement and eviction for a while, and these two films have emerged from these two spaces. The first one actually was part of urban studies research sort of thing that I was doing. I was producing sound and video about like how people settle, and it just so it's a single take, 27-minute film that. And of course, it means nothing to say, in a digital world, a single take means very little. So I was asked by somebody, like, how many times did you retake that? How many times did you take the shot? So I was like, okay, because apparently BBC does it like 400 times to get it right. You can go on for an hour. So the reason, so I just thought I'd so this film, I'm trying to keep going back to this question of what it means to have sort of care, and if there's another word that I can think alongside it, like a compassion to what it is that you're filming, which means that, I'm not sure what it means, but it is something that one has internalized in a way, because it is very, very important to think about it. I mean, I see the word representation sometimes as sort of a failure of imagination, only because it is articulated in usually quite simplistic terms. It's like, you have a camera, you're shooting somebody, that person has no power, so to speak, you have all the power, so to speak, you go to places and you think you're changing the place, except what you don't realize is that, you're being changed by it much more than the place is being changed by you. And so one of the things that I was quite drawn to as documentary practice was cinema verite, which is the way, sort of, in other words, sort of fly on the walls, direct cinema, which kind of acknowledges the presence of the camera as well, in some way. And so what it becomes is a little bit of a performance between the filmmaker and the subject. And and I've been influenced by a few filmmakers who have worked in this way, where you actually sort of let things unfold, but what you also, but it's not like an unfolding that is just happening, it's like something that is very much within the control of the frame and who's framing it. And so it goes back to the same questions of, like, what are you doing, how are you looking, what is this gaze producing? So the first time I tried something like this out, and it actually led to a film. I mean, one does this all the time, many times, but I was in this dispensary, this government dispensary in this place called Guha, which is it's a newest resettlement colony in Delhi. And there was a fight that broke out in the dispensary. And I was outside and I was called in and we went in and whatever. And because I was doing this work there and I kind of had this engagement in this place since 2006. And anyway, so then one ended up filming the whole thing, but also realizing while filming that you were actually doing something. So there were various players in the room and how are you framing this doctor who is, sort of he embodies every power equation that you can actually have in a place like Delhi. He represents the government and he represents the person and he's completely dismissive of the people that he is kind of supposed to be treating. The people hate him, he says, so there's a lot going on there, but then who do you frame? And if you frame one, you frame the other, then what are you actually doing? So this is something that was actually quite interesting to me to try, and so it kind of, and I keep saying to everyone, this is a film that is actually unwatchable in many ways because it goes out of focus, it goes, against the light, and then you also wonder what these things are doing to the narrative. So I am interested in form very deeply, and I find that form is is very crucial to my work, at least, in being able to respond to situations. So if you can just watch a little bit of that. I look at it, so the gaze, I suppose, that I try and produce over there as a sort of gesture to the place is kind of, it's an unsettling one. And so I've named it that. It's like an unsettling gaze. So we'll just watch like,
मैं अपने अंदर की बात बता रहा हूँ। Nobody is interested to come here. अगर किसी को एक दिन की डिटेलमेंट में भी भेजते हैं ना, तो वो डर जाता है। इतनी दूर, पता नहीं कैसे लोग नहीं जा सकते। सर प्लीज मेरे को, सर प्लीज मुझे कहीं और भेज। Even then I am coming over here and getting nothing, or doing everything. लैंग्वेज प्रॉब्लम तो मेरी कभी नहीं, बल्कि मेरे से तो पैसिफाइड होते हैं लोग। अब आप अपने एग्जाम्पल ले लो, आप मेरे पास आए, मेरी लैंग्वेज आपको लगी नहीं कभी खराब? आपको मैंने बल्कि गाइड ही करके भेजा, यही हो सकता है, जबकि मुझे नहीं पता, आप नहीं बताया, मेरे को नहीं पता था, मैंने आपको पास्ट में देखा है। ये यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम, और ये प्रॉब्लम मैं कहाँ से दूर करूँगा? मुझे तो कोई रास्ता नहीं दिख रहा। और मोर आप मैडम बोल रहे थे कि भाई आप चले जाओ, तो चला जाओ, मेरे को कोई टेंशन नहीं है, मुझे यहाँ से तो सब दूरी था।
नहीं, दूसरा चले जाना तो हल ही है ना।
यहाँ का हल यही है।
ये फेस कोई दूसरा करेगा।
वो करेगा नहीं, ये फेस नहीं, यहाँ का। अब मैं इनको तो यहाँ से नहीं कर सकता।
आज अभी क्या बात हुई है कि वो टीके की लाइन लगी हुई थी।
मैं आपको बात बताऊंगा ना, आप मेरी बात पे विश्वास नहीं करोगे, आप उनकी बात पे विश्वास करोगे। आप मेरी बात सुनना, मैं कभी झूठ नहीं बोलता, मैंने अपने फादर को आज कभी नहीं बोला। चाहे मैंने उसको इतना ही लॉस उठा लिया, फादर कभी कोई कभी आई नेवर टेल अ और लेडी जो है ना, उन्हीं से नहीं, मेरे से बिना बात बदतमीजी करके चलेगी। मैं तो यहाँ दवाइयाँ लिख रहा था और जो पेशेंट्स थे ना, उन्होंने ये कहा सर आप हम सबके साइन कराओ इस पे कि ये लेडीज क्या कर रही है। एक जो आपको यहाँ से ये करके लाई है ना, वो इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर दैट, वो वहाँ अंदर गई है सुरेश जी से। अभी 3-4 दिन पहले उन्होंने डॉक्टर किया था, तो हमने चलो कोई बात नहीं, हो गया चला गया, कोई नहीं भाई। आप जो है किसी को अपनी लैंग्वेज में जितना रिस्ट्रिक्ट कर सकते हो ना, अपनी लैंग्वेज करो, ठीक है। हमको यहाँ पे ये गए 10 लोग खड़े हैं, आगे चली जाए पर्ची बनाओ, और वो ये कह रही पर्ची तो बन जाएगी लेकिन लाइन में तो आओ, आप लड़ने के लिए रोज तैयार रहते हो। वो बेवकूफ लग जाता है ना, कैसे बोल रहा है टोन में, बस वो शुरू हो गई। वो वहां से छोड़ के सीधे यहाँ उसने लैंग्वेज क्या यूज करी यार, अभी तुम्हारी बात लगाती हूँ, क्या हम नौकर हैं यहाँ पे ऐसे, एंड वी आर नौकर, ठीक है हम पब्लिक के नौकर हैं। मेरे को जरा इनमें से सबके में से किसी की इनकम टैक्स फाइल आगे दिखा दो कि कितना रिटर्न करते हैं और कितना इनका कंट्रीब्यूशन है, मैं इनके घर पे जाके नौकरी करूंगा। नहीं मैडम, आप जो है ना, आप एनजीओ हो, आप सेवा कर रहे हो, लेकिन सेवा के साथ ये नहीं मैं भी ये काम मांग रही हूँ, मैं कोई खास आदमी नहीं हूँ, मैं यहाँ किसी से पैसे नहीं लेता, भ्रष्टाचार नहीं है यहाँ।
नहीं, हमें भी 15 साल हो गए और हम कभी भी वन साइडेड काम नहीं करते हैं, हम एक फैसिलिटेटर काम कर रहे हैं। हमारे जितने सर्विस प्रोवाइडर, आप सर्विस प्रोवाइडर नहीं होंगे तो हम किसको सर्विस दिलाएंगे?
सर्विस प्रोवाइड, हाउ आई कैन बी इन अ पोजीशन टू प्रोवाइड दैट।
अब मेरी बात सुनो, उसका हमें क्या कहना है कि जैसे टीके की लाइन लगी थी, कहती मुझे यूँ लगा शायद आज दवाई नहीं मिलेगी, शायद टीकाकरण होगा, तो मैंने आगे पूछा कि क्या
कुछ नहीं होता, वो कोई सोच ले मर्डर हो रहा है
कि दवाई मिलेगी। डॉक्टर साहब आप देखो, अगर मान लो वो बोल रही है कि दवाई मिलेगी तो एकदम से पर्ची वाला ही।
Okay, so this is just, I mean, the thing is, it makes no sense to watch this film unless you watch it from the beginning to the end, because it's one take and it just goes on and on and on. And as usually my mode is not to work that narratively, it's not narratively driven so much, but this is like the most narrative film I've ever made. I mean, or somehow made itself, and I was there for it. So this is kind of a framing of the system rather than a subject, a single subject. And so that kind of was interesting to me, like how do you actually frame the system that actually doesn't work or it's overburdened or whatever it is. It's like you're not looking at who is the subject here, you know, so that's a bit unclear, and once that becomes a bit unclear, there are other questions that are possible to ask. But I think because I'll move on to the next film, and because yeah, this is just to so I thought that so the film that I'm working on currently is a film that is about marriage, and it is also now located in a different resettlement colony in Delhi called Laxmi, which is Nagar, which is mainly working class neighborhood, which has got, I think, it's a very politically potent place. There are many MLAs from there, and it is a post-emergency resettlement colony, which means certain things for how it is now, how it has grown over the years. It is also not a very homogeneous place. So anyway, so now the thing is that I was asked to, so this is a commission project, I was asked to make a film that looks at early marriage, and how does that happen, and what are the implications of it, and how are we supposed to understand it, maybe problematize it a bit. So I, for 6 months, thought I would do, find out from various organizations, NGOs, how everyone's looking at marriage. And then I was just like, okay, I can't work like that. I don't know how to work like this. I do not know how to ask the right questions. I do not know how to understand people who are already speaking that language of agency, maybe, all these words that we have. Agency, development, agendas that are quite funder driven, and there are good funders and not good funders, and there are certain things that are required for us to do, because we need to also be able to live. But then I was like, I'm just going to go do what I do, which is basically turn to place, sight being the way in which I approach anything at the start. So I just thought I'd present some questions of that have emerged for me during making this film. One of the sides, there are sort of three stories that I'm following in here. One is at a beauty parlor, and of course, as you can imagine, it is a place that is quite wonderful for stories, but it's also a place where you really have to negotiate this, like, what is too personal, what is too private, what are you listening to, what is everyone telling you, and what are you doing there? Now, okay, so then, but what did emerge, not so much marriage, because I mean, marriage is kind of like this overriding imagination, and it's kind of an interesting way of, you just have to tell me when I have to stop talking. I have time? 5 minutes? And so anyway, so then just to, but what started coming out was this like stories of like love, and then you just, how do you represent love, you know, like, if, how do you actually represent love? How do you sort of frame stories that are from the middle, because that's what we do. We enter stories from the middle and we leave stories from the middle, and we, how do we go in and out of people's lives? Because these are things that one is constantly doing, but it's not like, you know, you give yourself so much importance, like, okay, you know, if I leave this person's life, it's going to like fall apart. And how do you unlearn representation in a sense? Or what representation necessarily might be, and how you unlearn it and act with compassion. Again, slightly open, slightly sort of strange questions. And what does compassion look like in a frame? So, and how do you know when stories are being manipulated to suit agendas? Like, what does that look like? So anyway. I was also told when I entered into these situations that I was going into spaces where no feminist would go. So I was just like, oh, I'm not really sure what the implications of that are, because these are women who are enjoying Karwa Chauth, and they're enjoying, you know, this kind of controlling boyfriend, and they're kind of like, you know, how do I understand this compliance, you know, and what do you do with that, you know, what is this film going to be? So it was like really sort of questions. It was just like, you know, what am I, you know, like at the end of it, it's like, but is this life? I mean, like, yeah, it's life, but you know, what are you doing? I mean, so it's also these questions that keep coming. Maybe to show the second clip just to, so this is a film in progress, and it's just a little clip from, let's just close that. It's not subtitled to Hindu. तैयार हो जाएंगे फिर अच्छे से खींचिए। वो पता है मैं तैयार होने वाली थी, मैं पहले ही निकल गई घर से। और थोड़ी तैयार हो जाऊंगी फिर आएंगे। सेंटर पे ही ला लूँगी। नहीं जब उनके लिए तैयार हो रही उन्होंने नहीं देखा तो क्या करना है? आराम से। साढ़े 4 हो गए। वो तो मैं अपने 4 बजे तो हो जाता है। वो तो देखी मैं मनकी हो गई तो क्या करूं? मेरे साथ में वो लिया फिर वो आई थी तो मैं जाके शादी हो गई तुम्हारी देना तो सबको पता है वो उसने तो दूर कर दिया कसम दे दी मुझको यार, इतने जो मेरी कसम है पास में रख रखी अभी। मैं ऐसी नहीं हूँ जो इधर उधर वो मारती है ना, उनमें से नहीं। मैंने सिर्फ उसे अपनाया है जिंदगी में, अपने लाइफ में तो दिल से लगा लिया मुझे। और मैं अब कभी जिंदगी में मैं से अगर हो गया ना तो शायद मुझे कम मुश्किल से
कर दिया सास ने। तो मेरे पास सोना का जो हो गया अभी तक मम्मी खाना बनाने की गालियाँ भी लेके गई, कह रही हमारे दिन आराम कर रखा है कोई लड़का हो तो एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते, तो लड़की के साथ क्या फ्यूचर है तेरा? मैंने कहा मम्मी मैंने उस तरह से उस जरिए से देख कर प्यार नहीं किया ना, तो मैंने तो प्यार समझ कर प्यार किया। ये मेरी दिल की फीलिंग है, मेरा प्यार है, और इसमें मैं क्या कर सकती हूँ? ठीक है, पागल हो गई हूँ, मेरे पागल ही हो, दीवाना पड़ी का प्यार होता है, पागल पड़ी का प्यार होता है, और आपको बड़ी जिंदगी होगी।
So we'll just see the next one as well. These are just two of the stories from film which
हम लोग और के बाद बैठे थे, मैंने और जाके बैठते थे, हम लड़के छेड़ते थे सारे सहेली, मेरी गाड़ी पे घूमते थे हम, किसी का पर्स लेके लटकाते हुए ही चले। वो बोलती थी रुको रुको, अरे मैंने चलना है यहाँ से, मैंने क्या चल यहाँ से, तो ये बोलते थे सॉरी सॉरी क्या है, बोलूँ सॉरी क्या पड़ा, इसी में इसके तो सॉरी तो बोलना पड़ेगा, कहता चल भाग यहाँ से, सच्ची में नहीं तो वाह, अरे मैं जब पागल होने की बात है ना, उसकी बगल में से जाकर उसको जो पर्स करा ना उसमें घुस जाता है अंदर, आगे भी नहीं थी और मार रहा तो मैंने मत आया तो मैंने घुसेड़ दिया, मैं ले आया उसका पर्स, अरे excuse me, अरे मैंने जाके रुके उसमें जा तो मैं जाकर अपना स्कूल ऐसे ये फोन कर मुझे मैसेज कर देते, फिर वही से साइड कर रोज इसी के लिए जाते थे कि 8 बजे छुट्टी होती थी, वही तारक दूरी चलती थी इनकी अंदर, मैं तभी तक बात सेट हो गई, आज मुझे याद नहीं क्या तारक दूरी मैं वही तो याद मेरी जो बहन है तो मेरी भी बंदी है, मैंने सिर्फ जरूरी नहीं शादी करना, वो जो 7 फेरे लेते हैं वो भी तो अलग हो जाते हैं, हम भी 7 फेरे लेके साथ रहते हैं, क्या जरूरत है जाती है, शादी करेंगे तो वो बवाल हो जाएगा, घर वाले कहेंगे हम तो इसको शादी करना चाह रहे हो, तुम जाके शादी कर लो, देखते हैं भैया कब तक ऐसे लाइफ चलेगी, पता नहीं ये मेरे साथ है मैं नहीं हूँ, कुछ भी हो सकता है भाई। इसके पापा एक बोलते हैं ना रोते तो फिर मेरे को अच्छा नहीं लगता है, फिर मैं कहता हूँ अगर तेरे पापा बोलते तो कर लेगा शादी, मैं
So it seems like all of Dakshin Puri is queer, which is amazing. And everyone is marrying everyone or not, or like, I don't know. Anyway, so the thing is like, it's great because no matter, this is one of those things, it's like, you don't need to be a man, you don't have to be a woman, but somehow the structures are in place, you can just like, so anyway, so this is a way to try and, I'm sure it's, maybe a radical marriage proposition that this film is making. But anyway, so the thing is that, the questions I constantly have while I'm making this film are very much to do with, what I just one second, just mentioned. Yeah, so basically, so this is also a film in progress and I have to finish it. But I think part of the attempt is to sort of figure out a way of being and figure out, what this camera is doing, it's sort of also not focusing on one subject again, which I find quite, this idea of single protagonists a bit difficult, because I find it's quite burdened. But so it's a collective sort of world, and I'm interested in the collectivity of it, and also to acknowledge that, at the end of the day, encounters are quite arbitrary. We meet people and we say we have a relationship with them, but we actually don't. Or it's a relationship that is very time-bound, or it's very, and there's no real resolving this as far as I'm concerned. I don't think we should try and fool ourselves by saying that there's a way to do this, which is somehow make ourselves feel better about it. Of course, there are ways to do it in ways that are not entirely obviously exploitative, and that is not the only thing the only relationship we can have, and to constantly be able to look at it, to constantly look at it in terms of a power relationship is also unproductive, I feel. So because I think there are other kinds of there are other ways of being equal, and I think there is a certain relational intimacy that we have as people that are connected in a space. So that is kind of my zone of doing what I do, and we can talk later.
Thanks, Priya, for that different ways of framing and also asking the significant question about who is the subject when you're trying to. Thanks so much for that.